All right, you guys, are you ready for this? It's a little bit late, I know, but it's never too late, honestly, to reflect on a past year and the favorites that have come out from that in anything. But with me, of course, that will be Bibles specifically. And let's take a look at my top favorite Bibles released in 2025. Coming in at number 7 is the Berean Standard Bible from Bible Hub. Now, this is a translation that I don't think I've mentioned on my channel to this point, but if you watch Bible reviews, it's one that's kind of been becoming more popular in the last year and a half or so. Bible Hub came out with this translation, I think a couple years ago now, and it used to be the Berean Study Bible. I know there's a couple pretty popular videos on that. I think Tim Wildsmith has one on the Berean Study Bible, and then there are a couple editions out now. This is the third edition of the now Berean Standard Bible. And this is one that I actually received as a complimentary gift from someone I did a rebind for. They accidentally sent 2 hardcovers when they sent me one to rebind and gave me this one because I didn't have a third edition. So this is actually a really nice edition of the Bible. It's a matte finished cloth over board, kind of a vinyl texture. It looks really nice for a hardcover. And I'm not a super big fan of hardcovers in general, but the cloth over board hardcover is really my favorite way to go when it comes to a hardcover. Now these, I believe, are on 45 GSM paper, if I'm not mistaken. They updated their formatting a little bit from the second editions, which I do have a copy of, but I don't have it with me here. But it is a paragraph format. The Old Testament quotations in the New Testament are not indicated in any way, but you do have the parallel passages marked in the New Testament. Double column. You can see how it looks here. I'm not sure the font size of this edition. Poetic Settings do have a poetic verse. So far from what I've seen, the Berean Standard is a very, very literal, consistent translation. It's more available than many of the others. Bible Hub has made this a very accessible translation, which I think is why it's taking off so well. And I'm really looking forward to digging into it and seeing how it reads. I've really enjoyed what I've read from it so far. So this is my number 7 for 2025. All right, number 6 barely fits on the screen. And this is the 1611 King James Bible from the King James Bible Museum. I believe they're in Tennessee. This is a unique edition of the Bible that I was not expecting to come by, and it was more of an impulse buy last year, 2025, which is actually the year that this particular one was released. And it is a facsimile of the original 1611 King James Bible. And it is quite unlike any other facsimiles I have encountered. Now, the 1611 is one that everybody really longs to have good representation of because it's kind of the magnum opus of publishing, really, when it came to literature, and especially for the Bible in English as well. And so it's one that I think holds a lot of weight for a lot of people. You don't have to be King James only to find very much significance in this specific edition. And this one is as true as a facsimile can get. They even have all of the front material, which I know many facsimiles do not contain. You'll see all of the dedicatory material, translation, translators to the reader note. You have the tables and chronologies. You also have the red accents, which is something a lot of other facsimiles don't have. And then you have all the genealogies in their graphs that many facsimile editions don't have. So it literally has everything that the 1611 edition had, including what many don't like to acknowledge, and that is the Apocrypha. The 1611 KJV did have the Apocrypha, and this edition includes that as well. Now, this is one that is on, I believe it's 30 GSM paper. It's a pretty big layout, as you can see, but it's only about $65, $64. And when it comes to an actual faithful representation of the King James 1611, that is an extremely good price for something of this quality point. You can find many museum-worthy type facsimiles that are much more expensive. This, I think, is a fantastic representation and facsimile of the 1611. Number 5 is one that I was hoping would make it to my list, but I wasn't sure that I'd actually get a copy before the year 2025 was out. But I did end up getting one, and that is the CSB Single Column Personal Size Reference Bible from Holman. This is in the handcrafted collection, their black goatskin. It's a very nice edition. I wouldn't say it's spectacular. It's pretty average when it comes to an affordable goatskin edition of a Bible. But they do a very fantastic job in simplicity. They have a very good look. They have CSB, Holy Bible, Christian Standard Bible, Holman. They do fill up every spine square, but they do it well. It has an interior gilt line, probably a calfskin liner, textured kind of a vinyl end sheet, and then red under gold art gilding. And then what really sets this one apart compared to others is the interior. And if you remember my review of the CSB single column personal size and the slate calfskin, it is a very similar layout, but you can see that the text is a little smaller. It's a 9-point text, whereas the personal size Bible was a 10-point. And then it has cross references in the margin with textual footnotes separated at the bottom. Something that's really nice about this one is I think they did a very good job overall in keeping the text out of the gutter. I know it looks a little tight here, but I have not really used this Bible that much, so it hasn't opened up completely yet. But overall, it passes my ribbon test. The ribbon doesn't touch the letters as it's tucked in there. That's a 3/8 inch ribbon. So I think it does a fairly good job of keeping the text on the center of the page despite having the cross references on the margin, which is usually the downside to this layout. But I think they did a great job. You have red verse numbers for the cross references and the verses. Chapter numbers are red. Page and books are red as well. I like having red accents on a Bible. I think this is probably a 30 GSM paper, I would say. Maybe 28, but it's fairly hefty, so I think it might be a 30 GSM. Looks really good and definitely made my number 5 as a reference Bible in the CSB. Number 4 is kind of a unique one because it's not one that everyone's going to get their hands on, but I also know that a lot of people don't really want to get their hands on. So it's one that is a little bit nostalgic for some people, but it's new in the sense that this is a Schuyler Quentel, New American Standard, 1995, in their limited run from 2025, and this is the beginning of 2026, but there are still some of these available for those interested as of the making of this video, of the Quintel with their thicker paper. Now, Schuyler used to use a 36 GSM paper on a lot of their Bibles when they were first publishing. They even had an early run. I think it had 40 GSM or 45 GSM. But they quickly thinned down their publication to a more manageable 28 GSM, which is what most of their Bibles are printed in now. And I know a lot of people liked that switch, but there were those of us, not really myself included, because I do love those thin lines, but some really liked that thicker paper. It was just a little bit more durable in many respects, especially those who like to write in their Bibles. And this one is really no exception. I really love the 36 GSM paper. I don't mind having a thicker Bible. I prefer quality over user-friendliness sometimes when it comes to things like this. The paper is a little bit creamier, has that wonderful 11-point font from the Schuyler Quentels. Textual footnotes are under the outer columns, and then the cross references are at the bottom. A very classic, simple layout that looks really nice. It's a little bit heftier on this edition. It is a chunky Bible, but I really like that they came out with another run of this line of Bible from Schuyler. All right, number 3 is actually one that struggled to be number 2, but they're pretty much neck and neck when it comes to their placement in this lineup. It wasn't exactly from least favorite to most favorite, but I did kind of organize it that way relatively within the lineup. So this is the New King James single column verse by verse reference Bible from Nelson, released in the Premier Collection. Now I did review the non-Premier Collection quite a while ago now, but this one was released in 2025, and I think it's one of the top premium New King James Bibles on the market right now when it comes to affordability. Obviously, you can get super high-end Schuyler Bible New King James if you want something like that, but when it comes to affordability and a nice leather cover, this one I think hits every box. And it is also one of my favorite layouts when it comes to single column reference, and that's having the references in the gutter, not the margin like we saw in the CSB. Now this one is verse by verse, so it sets it apart a little bit from the New King James single column reference that I mentioned earlier. It does have red accents, verse numbers in red, chapter headings and chapters are in red, cross references are in red. Looks really nice, has kind of this chubby portable formatting, feels really nice in the hand. This is a very smooth goatskin cover. Simple spines, I really like how Nelson does their spines, looks really clean. Has gold interior gilt line, I think a leather liner. Very classic from Nelson, and I just think they did a great job with this edition. Definitely, this is the Bible I'm actually using as my New King James for 2026 this year, and one that I highly recommend at any time when it comes to a single column New King James. All right, number 2 is actually one I wasn't expecting to make this list. One, for the fact that I wasn't expecting to get one, but then 2, I wasn't sure about how I would like these new leathers from Crossway when it came to their heirloom series. Now, I was greatly mistaken in any doubts I may have had. I've used this Bible almost every day since I got it, and it is the Heirloom Alpha, which is also a new addition to me in the last year. And it is in their Mahogany Calfskin, which is a new leather that they came out with, and has all their new features, including the 2025 ESV text, which is also an update from last year. They came out with their new logo, which is technically an old logo, I should say. They returned with their historic Crossway logo, which I'm very happy about. I like this one better than just having the ESV, which they did for the last several years. Really clean looking spine work. The interiors on these were exquisitely done. I did the unboxing of this video, or this Bible, which is going to be linked, but they just upped their game with some of the little things when it came to these editions. The biggest being the red accents. So you have the books, page numbers, and chapter numbers in red, not the verses. And then the ribbons being 3/8 inch wide right out of the box instead of their little 1/4 inch ones, which they did for so many years, and pretty much everybody complained about. So a couple of big changes really when it comes to Crossway's lineup, not least of which is their new leather options and the ribbon change. I think most people are going to notice that as one of the biggest ones. But this one is probably the most floppiest Bible I have had in a while. It's definitely a joy to hold. It might be a little bit floppy for some people. I know a few have complained about that, but I have personally really loved it, and it's become a favorite for me. All right, number 1 is proof that I don't need a premium Bible to be happy, and I will put that out there as often as it needs to be said, because when it really comes down to it, I am in the premium Bible world because I love the Bible and I love studying the Bible. That's the only reason I'm there. It's not for the posterity of having high-end Bibles. It's because I think the Bible deserves the best attention we can give it. But when it comes to study, you don't always have premium options, and one that I think really tops all of that is the Connecting Scripture and New Testament from Holman that was released in 2025 in the Christian Standard Bible. I know this one made a lot of people's lists this year, and I think for extremely good reason, because it really sets out to do something that no other study Bible and study tool has attempted to do for a long time. And that is, or maybe even ever, and that is connect what the New Testament authors were utilizing when it came to Old Testament references. So anytime that the New Testament author quotes directly from the Old Testament, it's in blue. similar to what you would find in your average Bible translation that highlights Old Testament quotations, such as the NASB and the CSB in its normal habitat. And then anytime that an allusion is made to the Old Testament, that is in green. So anytime the author was hinting essentially at something in the Old Testament, that will be highlighted in green. And all of those colors correspond in three ways. So you have that color coordination in the text. Those correspond to the colors in the cross references. So if there's an allusion, it's in green. And then if you have a quotation, it's also in blue, corresponding to its mention in the passage. And then in the commentary, whenever you have the commentary referring to the individual passage in question, when that verse is mentioned or that connection is mentioned, it will also be in blue if it's a quotation, or green if it's just referring to the allusion. So it's very easy to look at this and immediately see where the connections are being made and where the quotations are being quoted from. A very fantastic tool. They have some articles in here as well. The book introductions are very helpful. And last of all, I think what makes this really useful is the Old and New Testament scripture index in the back of the Bible. If you're wanting to, say, study the book of Hebrews, you'd go to the book of Hebrews in the New Testament section, and then you would look up the references to the Old Testament in that book. So here we have Hebrews. Here gives the list of Old Testament references in Hebrews, so there's 174. You'd go to whatever chapter in Hebrews you're in. Say if it's Hebrews chapter 4, here's all the references to chapter 4, and their Old Testament links. So anytime the Old Testament is referenced in Hebrews 4, you'll see those references here, also color-coded in green for allusions and blue for direct quotations. Makes for a very quick but different sort of reference system and index when it comes to studying the Bible. So overall, this made the top of my list for many reasons, these of which are only but a few. And I think it's just a great study tool and one of the best options, I think, right now for a deeper dive into a basic study of Scripture even, or if you want to get much deeper and do sermon prep or different types of study. Well, thank you guys all for watching this summary of my favorite Bibles from 2025. I know it's a little bit late coming in the year of 2026, but I don't care. I just wanted to get this out because I do think it's fun creating these lists of favorites. And obviously, as you can see, I really kind of went as even as I could when it came to expensive versus inexpensive Bibles. And as you saw, my number one was one of the cheapest ones on here. And so doesn't mean that you need to go out and buy the most expensive Bible to have something that you love and cherish and find very useful when it comes to studying the Bible. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.